Okay, guys, we are getting ready to head into some units that require some academic writing, and one thing that we have to talk about before we get into this argument writing unit is plagiarism. We're going to talk about what it is and how you avoid it, because plagiarism is something that sometimes you may not even realize that you're doing or you don't intend to do, but you just may not know how to present information from another source as part of your own argument. So that's what we're going to talk about today. Okay, so plagiarism is this. Let me give you a little scenario. Imagine that you are really good at telling jokes. You didn't just tell these jokes, you made them up yourself. But imagine if one day you heard somebody else telling your same joke that you made up, but he never mentioned that it came from you. How would you feel? That's plagiarism. What you're doing when you plagiarize is that you are borrowing someone else's words, ideas, or creation without giving them any credit at all for it. And so when this can happen, when you research a topic online, when you look at books for information, magazines, or anywhere else, and you use the author's words or ideas in your own writing without giving them any credit for it, that's plagiarism. It's really not good. Basically, even if it's unintentional when you do it, it's still considered cheating, especially in a college course. And you should avoid doing it. The problem is that so many students plagiarize and they don't even realize that they're doing it. They don't intend to cheat, but they do. So we're going to practice ways today to avoid plagiarism so that you don't end up with plagiarism in your own writing. Let's look at a few examples. What we're going to do first is read this essay, and if you're in class with us today, we're going to be reading this in class. It's short and sweet. It's a little informative essay called The Hungry Venus Flytrap. So let's read that, and then we're going to look at some different ways that students have used this information in their own writing. If you're at home and couldn't be with us today for whatever reason, you're going to want to go ahead and pause the video here and read this assignment. It's under the handout material in Week 9 folder. And otherwise, we'll be reading this in class together. So take a minute, pause, read the article, and unpause when you're done. Okay, so let's go back to this idea of plagiarism. So say this is Joe, our friend Joe, and he is writing a report about the Venus flytrap for school. One of his sources is the article that you just read. So your job now is to read what Joe is writing and tell him when he is plagiarizing. Some of us will be in groups in class today, so we're going to think about our answers first and then share with our group. If you're on your own today for whatever reason, you can just do this by yourself. And then we're going to try to reach an agreement as a class for those of us who are in class. Okay, so ready? We are going to look at some examples here. Here's one sentence from Joe's essay. The Venus flytrap attracts insects by displaying a red, lush-looking interior, tricking them into thinking it's a flower. Okay, think about it, look at your article, and decide, is this plagiarism or not plagiarism? So if you said plagiarism, you are correct. Let's compare Joe's writing with the article to see why this is plagiarism. If you look at Joe's writing over here, we have this part in orange that comes directly from our article. So if you look, all of this part that's highlighted is the exact same wording and order from the article, and Joe uses that same wording and order in his own write-up. So Joe copied almost an entire sentence word for word into his own report. That's definitely plagiarism. Okay, let's look at another example. This is another sentence from Joe's paper. In the Hungry Venus flytrap, Bug Lover explains that the Venus flytrap has a bright red center, which makes it look like a flower. This makes insects attracted to it. Okay, decide for a minute if this is plagiarism or not plagiarism. And if you said that it was not plagiarism, you are correct. Joe, in this case, put the information from the article into his own words, and he gave credit to the author. So this is not plagiarism. Good job, Joe. Okay, here's another example. This is from Joe's paper. This plant happens to grow in dirt that is too low in nitrogen to meet its needs. To make up for that lack of nitrogen, it gets by eating insects. To make up for that lack of nitrogen, it gets it by eating insects. All right, look back at the article and decide, is this plagiarism or not plagiarism? Okay, hopefully you have an answer now. That was definitely plagiarism. Oh, Joe. Let's look at why. So here is the sentence from Joe's paper. This plant happens to grow in dirt that is too low in nitrogen to meet its needs. To make up for that lack of nitrogen, it gets it by eating insects. Okay, let's look at the original article. Venus flytraps happen to grow in soil that is too low in nitrogen to meet their needs. To make up for that lack of nitrogen, they get it by consuming insects. So we changed a word here or there, but that's all. And that's definitely plagiarism. Just changing a few words from the original sentence without crediting the author, even if you just change some words, that is still plagiarism. Okay, let's look at another example. This is from Joe's paper. The Venus flytrap needs to eat insects because they contain nitrogen, which is a nutrient the plant needs and can't get from the soil it grows in. Okay, look back at the article and think about, is this plagiarism or not plagiarism? And if you said this was not plagiarism, you are correct, sort of. In this case, Joe used his own words this time, but he still hasn't given the author credit for this information. So if he had done this, if he had said, the Venus flytrap needs to eat insects because they contain nitrogen, which is a nutrient the plant needs and can't get from the soil it grows in, comma, according to Samantha Bug Lover, that would be better because now we've given the author the credit that she deserves. Okay, let's look at one more example. Again, from Joe's essay, according to Samantha Bug Lover, the jaws of the flytrap clamp shut in as little as 1/10 of a second, trapping the insect forever. Look back at the article and decide, is this plagiarism or not plagiarism? And this one is actually not plagiarism. In this particular case, Joe used the author's exact words, but he gave her credit for the information and put quotation marks around the words that came right from her article. Okay, so now that you know what plagiarism is, we are going to practice some ways to avoid it. So our next exercise in the next mini lesson will be over using something called summarizing in order to help us avoid plagiarism.